this is what is shown what a statesman is like, you know.
Yeah.
I think it was a mixed bag of everything because it's a mixed bag because Zelensky, see what happened to him when they were trying to bucket each other in a way. You know how that ended, and so it depends also people's
that cookie crumbled.
exactly. So it's about character more than anything else. If I don't want to say bigger person type of thing, but there has to be some sort of, for me, that neutrality, you know, for me, I really appreciated it as an individual. We all have different opinions how we could have or should have expected him to have reacted to certain things, especially the time my name throw with these pictures, but this is what is happening. When someone is asking, where in South Africa is this? And you cannot answer. Yeah, I understand. So for me, I was okay. I was okay.
One of the things I often say is that whatever job we do, we bring our personalities to
True,
the job,
exactly,
you know?
exactly.
I always give the example of two doctors equally competent, same condition. One says, let's take the radical approach. Let's operate. The other one says, no. Let's take a more conservative approach. Let's start by giving some medication. Let's watch them for 24 hours. In that 24 hours, it's possible that the person who put the person under the knife, the person might die, and then people criticize and say, why did you start with the radical procedure instead of equally?
Exactly.
The person who starts with the medication, the person dies within 24 hours, and then you are asked, you should have taken this person to surgery.
Either way, don't win.
And it's not that either of them is incompetent.
Yes,
you know?
it's just approach.
You know, and in fact, either of them could actually turn out to be the one who gets the best outcome. So okay. Firstly, knowing what we know about Cyril Ramaphosa, I wasn't surprised. You know, about the approach. But by the way, some people were just ticked off by the presence of the white representatives. But we must remember that three of them were at the instance of Trump. So your host says, when you come through, please come through with this one and that and that one. You know, and you still want to talk to them, so you can't say to them, who are they? You know, if it means they should be there, that's fine. So it's not like, because there were some people who were saying, now any else is speaking for us. Like, what? Who are we? You know.
Look, I think, those people also, we can't run away from the fact that we are a multiracial country.
And we are.
You know, and the presence of minds for the likes of any else, of course, anyone can say whatever they want about any else, because it's really never been a person who's our representative. You know. But I think the likes of Abo Rupert who are actively South Africans, and they hold some clout to these guys.
No, they do.
And that's what people forget.
People forget that you can't, for better or worse, you can't ignore the wealthiest person on the continent.
You can't. No, you can't. And equally
and also
so.
the clout.
That's the point. So.
And also knowing that Rupert also had engagements or used to know Trump in the old days, you know, because you have to do environmental scanning whenever you go into such meetings. If you know, Kanene, he's an avid golfer, so it would make sense because he's got, maybe his mindset is more an approach of a golfer, how he sets on doing certain things, then those people will be some neutralizer of some sort, or, you know, they are.
Look, here's how I put it. That was a moment for statesmanship, not for politicking.
True.
That was for a moment for statesmanship rather than politicking.
Which I think, Steenhuisen failed. He failed. I think Steenhuisen and the whole thing that he was trying his point across, and it was long-winded and quite very.
It was not a team player.
Actually,
It was offside.
I actually think Rupert did better.
Yeah, Rupert, for
Yeah,
me,
he
was
did, yeah.
he was the star of the show.
You know.
And of course, I mean, scolding Stian Hazen.
But sometimes you have to pull that card because we are born that things can go south very fast here, so you have to contain it.
Yes,
You know,
you know, in the province that you
And
run,
also,
you know.
also, I think it was a good approach for the South African delegation
Yes.
to not make much of the video that was played. And so on.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
that was gonna be easily a distraction.
It would,
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
stuck to what they were there to do, to speak about rekindling the relationship and the economy.
that resetting,
Yeah.
of the
Resetting.
relationship, and,
Ah,
which
If you
is-
stick
which
to
was-
your original agenda and you don't digress from
as a
it.
good as a result, not
Mm.
even the American press became
Yes.
very keen.
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah,
on-
exactly.
on that, because that was really an ambush.
It was. It was.
But the one thing I did share with Spokie,
Yeah.
I mean, actor is. I think, I mean, Zingiswa was too dramatic. I mean, the slitting of throats and all of that. I mean, I thought, damn, man, sister.
But
yeah,
I
why?
think if
Why?
I think if I got to put in it
Yeah.
to a certain level that.
No, but I mean, she must say, why the
You know,
slitting
But
of the
it's
throats and
funny
all of
because-
that? I
Look,
mean,
look, the
Yeah.
narrative,
She was good.
the narrative,
Yes.
the narrative that was needed to defend this false claim of white genocide and so on
yeah.
was a tricky one.
It
You know,
was.
It's a bit like, you know, it's almost like put in a position where you have to say, no, it's not. These are actually very few who are being killed. 20,000 people get killed in our country. They're also now saying, we are the murder capital.
Yeah,
What are you
yeah.
talking about?
But it's so
So
funny.
you have
ne?
to find a way.
But I mean,
Because remember, if you are touted as if you are the murder capital of the world,
yeah,
that's also a disincentive for
Yeah.
investment.
Exactly.
And
So
I think
it's
that's
a
where
bit
she
of a
went.
tricky
Yeah,
one.
she went there like big time. I mean,
Yeah.
crime and she was then dramatic, slitting
Because I'm
of
sure her point was about
It's
there's no targeted.
Target,
Yeah.
yes, race in South
Uh,
Africa.
Yeah, but one needed to find a way to.
Of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, she needed to find balance in that,
Yeah.
and without actually having to, because I mean, this is international.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is there watching, and
They're gonna go and look
grandmothers-
for these grandmothers
Yeah,
now.
grandmothers who are being slit their throats. I mean, when you're looking, which grandmother is going to want to come to South Africa
Exactly.
now and say,
Exactly.
gee, I don't know. So, but
Yeah.
I think I appreciated her going there.
No,
For me too.
and I think,
In fact, I watched an interview afterwards where she was saying at some point, White
Mm.
House had said, no, the delegation must be reduced to 7.
For sure.
And then she was informed that should be one of the 3 that would be dropped off.
Mm.
She said she insisted that no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to travel all the way to America
Mm.
and then
then
watch from
come.
the sidelines,
Yeah.
which I could have
Yeah.
done when I was back home.
Yeah.
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 And somehow she managed to get in to stay on, which I think was a good thing.
yeah.
No, it was.
yeah.
right.
No, it
people
was.
people expected Ramaphosa to say more, but I think
Mm.
he was correct.
Yeah.
He said,
No, I
I'm
think
not
it
going
was
to repeat
correct.
myself.
Yeah.
Look,
Mm.
Yeah. And
I've got
No,
people
it
here
was-
that,
the
yeah.
voices,
the guys were actually there to go further than
Mm.
what I had said, and I thought, I mean, it was good. I think in the main really, I mean, all you needed was some form of counter.
Yes.
And a lot of American sort of journalists, even the YouTubers, a lot of them have seen that as an embarrassment on the American
Of
president,
course.
not on the South African.
No, they
I
did.
mean,
say it that way.
Ramaphosa simply said, your 3 friends here. I
Eh,
can tell
wait.
you now, they wouldn't have been here if they'd been white genocide.
Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
which is a fact.
Mm,
Which is a
Yeah, they
fact.
You know, and
And
I
I think
think
at some point Rupert said it is placed in Grafrenet sometimes
Eh,
sleeps
where,
with the door.
where he's building the 3 what cottages for his grandchildren, and I'm like, "Mfunbeke Gafu," in fact. But also I remember they also sent that envoy to Doha where they sat with the prime minister and whoever else that is like statesmen there to find out, because they had a meeting with Trump, I think months prior to the one.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they kind of did their work in a way, because I didn't even know that he was given or gifted a Boeing, or is it a Boeing
Yeah, it's a
by
Boeing.
Qatar?
Yeah, Qatar.
Yeah, by the
Trump.
Qatar. Trump.
So that's also been a big source of debate in the American sort of politics, whether Trump should accept, which he accepted.
He accepted,
and
obviously.
whereas, I mean, of course, as a state president, you know, to accept gifts, and Trump is really trampling on all of those, you know, conflict of interest type of issues.
Trump,
you know?
guys,
He's like a true businessman. Wherever he sees an opportunity, he will.
The meme coin is quite a big issue there. He called people in to invest on his coin, you know, which is a meme coin, which is what is this thing? But is Bitcoin, sort of. But in cryptocurrency and all of that. So you can see that there's, I think the 4 years, and we are just 6 months into the first year.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what's going to happen in the next 3.5 years.
And then in the midst of all that, enter Elon Musk,
Starlink.
Starlink.
Yeah, last week this was a big thing. Now, look, let's talk about that. Solly Malatsi, and the whole sort of things that he raised, you know, in the government gazette to actually look at, and I think, I mean, to sum it up, what he's saying basically, that let's relook at the whole other things to equate it to ownership, which is where I think the problem is, because ownership and me saying, okay, you know, the plot you are giving me, give me the plot, and all I'll do is, you know, whatever comes out of the plot, I'll give you. It's you know, it's not ownership basically.
It's not.
You know, you're giving me the fruits of coming out of my land. Basically.
What is that?
and I'm not owning anything, and that's what you know, it's been a source of debate. That Starlink does not want that, so they would, they would want to just they call it beneficiation. Okay, in this community, we'll build, you know, town hall and all of that. That's nonsense for me. It doesn't equate to ownership in any way, shape, or form.
No.
So that's what has been put by Solly Malatsi with regards to the government gazette and the changes that they are proposing. But I think next week, guys, we've got someone that I did speak to, a guy that will be coming into the studio. We'll discuss this thing, because the whole thing, it's not just
but also what it means for the ICT sector.
Exactly,
and the players that are in it right now.
I think in general, when I was looking at this, and I did sort of pose the question to myself, whether and I think I put it up on my WhatsApp, the idea of redress laws being under attack. Because remember, was it in April, March, April, there was a lot of talk about the DA, which has gone to court to attack the issue of employment equity.
Yes.
And now you know, very soon after that, we've got Triple BEE that is being questioned now under Malatsi. So, and these are all DA.
And then of course there's expropriation.
So the redress laws and what it means under the sort of GNU that is being attacked right now, because the ANC does no longer have the majority that it used to have. And of course, the guys who are anti these redress laws, they are moving their muscle trying to make sure that whether or not they can push the envelope, if you like. So I think there's a question that needs to be discussed. South Africans, all of us, we need to be looking at these interestingly. What is to become of our redress laws? Whether or not, I mean, Ramaphosa was very emphatic this week. I don't know if you guys heard.
Yeah, no.
He was.
I remember when he was responding, was to Mulder.
Yeah, in Parliament. Yeah, to Mulder. Yeah. What did you think of his response?
Makes absolute sense. I mean, it makes sense. Although I think there's an old problem there.
Yeah.
Why BEE is not really achieving what it's set to achieve. The cake has not been grown enough.
Yeah.
You see? So even if you no matter how much efforts are made to have greater inclusion of people of color or black people into or having a share of the pie or to participate, the space for participation has not been broadened enough. This space was essentially, and I'm oversimplifying, an enclave of 8 to 10% of the population. And now you that same space with just a little more enhancement, we want to make it enough for the inclusion of the rest of the population. There is a problem there. So the problem is not BEE itself. It's the context in which we're trying to apply BEE. In other words, the necessary things that are supposed to be there. Mbeki, by the way, used to say it, that BEE is not really saying this company had a white face. Now it has got some black in it. No, we also want that there were these entities that were white only. Yes, we see now they've got a better demographics reflection, but there are also 10 others that have come in to that space that are black, or that are at least black. That
in that particular industry, as it were.
It's that other bit that has not happened, which is why you now have maybe like an emerging black oligarchy, a small one, and so the broad-based element of BEE is still something that needs to be achieved.
So I mean that context and the content of the particular sort of place we find ourselves in may not necessarily be the problem, but this is not the chase of the DA. The DA and them, their chase is to actually get rid of those. And that's where I think, for me, the debate and the discussion needs to be firm on that these are not going. And then, of course, when these are not going, then we address what you've just mentioned, Hector, to say, how do we then make sure that which now exists is much more beneficial to more people than the currently, or the elite, or the politically connected, which I think that's the bane of this whole thing when it comes to BEE. The bane of its existence is the fact that the evidence, as it shows that only people who are politically connected have been beneficiaries of these. And so how do we get rid of that element? And if the DA maybe were to say that, a lot of people will probably listen, other than them wanting to, just get rid of.
Because when you do that, you don't get rid of the racial or the interracial inequality. All you do is to create, alongside it, an intra-racial inequality that is now an inequality amongst the black population. Because of this small oligarchy that you have created. So that definitely needs to be fixed and taken care of. But I think what often happens with people is that they throw out the baby in the dirty bathwater.
Which I think that's what the DA is actually moving at, and I think that's where the challenge needs to. And I think most of you guys at home and South Africans in general, they need to really be very aware of what is happening and the sort of the shifts that are happening, and whether we deal with these as a people now, or we're just gonna let it be and let it play out in the political sphere until, because remember, the ANC and its power is diminishing on the daily, and it may soon, other than later, we may find ourselves with these guys who are pushing for that agenda, that redress must be a thing of the past. Joshua Tsaleye is saying something. Can you mention one American company that gave a 30% stake of its ownership to local business person, so that when we blame Malazi, it's based on facts? So he's saying, in other words, this guy, I think what Joshua Tsaleye is trying to advocate or understand what Malazi say. So at this moment, we're gonna have to look into that. But what we are just talking about, is the whole idea that the push of trying to make sure that the redress laws are actually done away with, and that's where we are actually speaking to. Next week we will speak into that, because we have someone who's coming to the studio and will actually address some of that particular question that Mr. Celo you are putting on the table.
But it just reminded me in the area of So-called distributive justice.
Keys. Oh, man,
Distributive justice. There's one theory of distributive justice, for example, that advocates for the fact that absolute equality probably cannot be achieved.
For sure.
And might not even be desirable. But even if you're going to have inequality, you must have inequality that ensures that the worst off are better than they would ever have been, even in the light of that.
Yeah, sure.
What is problematic is when the gap continues to increase, then it becomes a problem. Because there will always be people who are more enterprising, people who are more that kind of thing. Even if you say we're all starting
from scratch
now, equal opportunity.
Definitely.
5 years, in 10 years, you find some people, ahead. But the question is the game played in such a way that no matter what happens, the ones that are worst off are still in a decent position to be in. The problem is where you now have literally the perpetuation of poverty alongside the inequality itself. Poverty is defined.
So which is already the base problem that we have in terms of the South African society, where poverty is almost entrenched, in our society. And then you have this element of equality that is also now adding to that, we are, and sometimes I really don't believe some of the statistics that go out there where they say we are the most unequal country in the world. I really don't believe that. Those stats and numbers, I mean, of course, a lot of people will try and say whatever, but there seems to me, in my view, that every time we hear people talking and putting out stats, and put South Africa in there, we seem to be the worst all the time. I don't know why. We are the most...
Socio-economically, it might well be. Because South Africa has got, just yesterday I was looking at this. South Africa has got the highest number of dollar millionaires in Africa. Right? And in particular, if you look at just Gauteng, the issue is the gap between the worst off and the one that are most well off. It really is vast. There are many countries that are a lot poorer than South Africa, with a lot more poor people than South Africa, but they don't have as many rich people as South Africa has.
The ratio is not
so the ratio is not, it's the ratios that become an issue here. And inequality tends to get people really, really upset.
So those ratios, I mean, just before you continue, that if we're using that as in terms of the statistics, and that's the ratio that's being utilized, then that needs to be put out there, because sometimes it looks like it's just generalized and it's being put out there without actually putting those numbers, because those numbers would then make sense if you look at the number of people that are rich versus the number of people that are poor and the gaps that exist. Of course, I mean, that is easily explainable because you go into ShopRite, for instance, which it's one of the bad examples in our country where the CEO, he gets paid 1 year. What year was it? Where he got a bonus of about 63 million or whatever, and you go and check the people at ShopRite who get paid, that the entry level, the cashiers and all of those people, you look at their salaries. So when you look at those things in particular, which have always been a problem, the unions keep on raising, those things, they really make sense if that is, but now that problem is it a problem that is not dealt with regulatory, or is it a problem that is allowed to continue and exist within the laws of our country?
In some ways, it's for a moment focus especially on this one of executive salaries. It's in some ways a global problem. Of people, of executives, the ones in the C-suite, COO, CFO, CEO, compared to the
Spokie,
it's really,
what Spokie is aspiring
to. It's a big challenge, which I'm not sure whether they're able to solve it. at least unless and until what it means to be CEO is relooked at.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I follow diligently. I mean, I look at my compatriot at MTN, Ralph and Peter, even Sim Shabalala at Standard Bank, all these guys, you know. Yeah, their pay packet is really something to marvel at, you know. And you ask yourself, okay, well, what is it? What is in it? You know? I've tried to follow, you know, and just kind of try to figure out what is it that attached to so much value. But it's not always easy. I mean, these CEOs what they get is nothing than what compared to what international football stars get. And you try to think, does he really bring that much money to the club? Even if you look at all his endorsements and all the things, like what is this? Why is he being paid that much? You know, and even sports people.
Yeah,
you know. So where I'm going to, it's the value of work. It's a very debatable thing, man. How do you ascribe value to the work or the contribution that is actually made by the different people and the different work that they do? You know, I mean, if you think about it, these CEOs get paid far much more than I don't know, a specialist neurosurgeon. And you're trying to think, do they actually have a much more meaningful contribution? And even in terms of the skill and whatnot that they bring in than this kind of specialization.
Yeah,
it might well be because of the size of the businesses that they had and the contribution that they bring to the economy. That might well be. You never know. But yeah, maybe it just needs some more thinking through. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you know, one guy, I mean, Sizongena was Spokie. Just an example. An example. So one guy makes an example of a Starbucks CEO that they employed at one stage, who was a consultant. And that's another debate altogether, because the debate is raising is that because consultants are in the space where they sometimes provide advice to companies and all of that, and so Starbucks then decides to employ this guy who was a consultant as a CEO, you know, and now being on the ground and being the CEO. Then Starbucks loses, I think in that particular period where he was CEO, moved from 94 billion. Yeah, 94 billion to about 70 something billion. So instead of actually improving, it went. And this is the guy who was now a consultant, you know, and then they employed someone else who is a CEO in another company, which obviously was a small company, and this person came in and then they made Starbucks was so profitable that it moved to 120 some odd million. So do you see that that the value, then this guy would probably be more valued? And of course, I mean, the guys who speak to these things are usually your shareholders. So the shareholders then look at this thing and think, hey, this guy actor has come in and moved us from $70 billion to 120. I mean, already your value and what you bring in is in numbers. So why then can't we give this guy the money that he wants?
But I think the argument that's always made is that yes, it is associated with his coming in.
Yeah.
But he didn't pull it off himself.
Yeah, that's the thing.
This whole chain.
Because you come with a strategy. Who pushes the strategy? Is that a one-man thing?
Yeah. That's the thing. But it's hard. CEOs, just talking about CEOs, just a bit of an aside, maybe it might be worthwhile looking at. It looks to me like public entities struggling to get CEOs. I picked up a story about is it this hospital, Frey,
Fred.
about to be a
Yes.
CEO now.
Yeah, after 6
And
years.
then in the story,
Mm.
I see them saying, "Oh, they're anticipating to get one from Tata and for
There's
this
quite a
and for that and
couple.
for that."
Mm.
And you might have noticed even BCM Development Agency took quite a while
Yeah.
to get. The current
The
CEO is the one who's been there the longest in the past, and he's been there like 18 months.
18 months, yes.
You know, before that. And so it looks like public entities and getting CEOs, and I was wondering what that is about. You know, then I started thinking about the kind of work that CEOs do.
Yeah.
CEOs are usually at the pinnacle of their careers, and
Yeah.
they've earned their stripes. And sometimes they're actually not sometimes, but they're the kind of people whose profile allows them to say, "I don't need this, don't need this stress," and so they don't do it, or they leave. Because probably McKinsey or whoever in the US is also looking for them.
Precisely.
Oh yeah, it's either that, and you allow those people to do their work, or you end up getting CEOs that are not competent to do the work. So also the space in which CEOs work,
Yes.
very important.
No, true.
Lastly, there was a time, I think I spoke about this, when Sizwe Nxasana was the CEO for First Rand. Remember when he came from Telkom?
Yes.
And then so he was the group CEO, because there's FNB and Westbank and Rand mentioned bank. I remember on one program called Captains of Industry, I was being asked, what's a typical day like? I'm saying this because quite often people downplay how much CEOs work. They tend to think CEOs play golf and go and watch cricket, and everybody else is doing the work, and then they get the money. And you're saying, no, typically he wakes up at like 3:30 in the morning. So it goes online because it's a global business. Because by then, probably what you called financial markets in the East are already trading. Make sure that everything is fine with the business. Exercises, gets to the office at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay? Sim Shabalala was saying the same thing about him as well. But then he touches base with the other CEOs, the other entities. And if everything is fine, then does the sort of what you call routine work. Now, that's very rare. There's always something or the other going on with business that needs a major decision and so on, maybe to consult the chairperson of the board and something. You probably needed to go and speak somewhere, or you're supposed to travel and all of that. But he says on a day that's uneventful, then he works, maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock, he leaves the office, gets home. That's a lucky day. At least you can talk to the kids, how was school, have dinner with them and all of that. 9:30, home office, sit again. You also look at the markets again, because the West is also trading.
Because you have to keep up with the global markets.
And all of that. Then maybe 10:30, maybe 11 o'clock, you go to bed. 3:30, you're up again. That's on an uneventful day. There is no strike, there is no labor to talk to, and all of that, which is very rare. But my point is that it gives a bit of a picture of the fact that the life and the work of a CEO is actually highly stressful. Not many people can actually make a career as a CEO for more than 10 years at max.
You know, the thing that you are saying, Hector, and looking at the corporate space and as well, but when we look to the state entities that you are talking to, don't you find that also the term CEO has somehow been weakened by the caliber of people that get employed in those spaces? And hence maybe some of them are struggling to get CEOs, because I mean, when we first heard, and this became sort of a common word, CEO, it was something that at corporate level, we're talking at the highest pinnacle, you know, as you are saying. But when you come to places like Frey, and I mean, we've seen with Tembisa Hospital in Joburg, you know, how trashy the work that the guys are putting out there, you know, and the amount of corruption and all of that in government institutions, they somehow managed to turn the word CEO and sort of the expectations upon that we have on CEOs into something that makes you look like, why is this person a CEO? You know, if they can't run a simple hospital. I mean, we had the other day the guy here from
SMD.
no, from what is this agency, man? Women's. So we're talking about Lusikisiki, where a hospital,
Gender Commission.
Yeah, Gender Commission, where about 50 kids, you know, that are actually raped and all of that that go through that hospital, but they are not being reported to the police, and the court not far off from there. There's nothing that's happened, you know, and these are things that you would think that when you have strong CEOs, people who understand processes, because CEOs are not just people who are leaders, but they understand processes and they're very sort of stringent on how processes should be managed and so forth. But
because compliance, governance, really there.
And really in the government sort of institutions, we've come to you know, I know CEOs who are quite not the caliber that is expected of CEOs.
Is it?
I don't know.
Sorry, just to add, is it not maybe the term has been loosely used in certain areas, like in government, more especially maybe in hospitals, for example? Shouldn't there maybe be another term that is used, maybe general manager, or, you know, something that will not tarnish, you know? I don't know.
GMs also should be. All of these people say,
it's for me, the way like how you have unpacked it and how we have witnessed it. It seems like it's been loosely,
because you'd think. I was surprised when I initially got to understand that the hospitals had CEOs. I never expected that. I thought there'd be like a chief administrator,
something like that. Yes,
not even general manager. Chief administrator. And then I thought, oh, maybe they thought they want to make the role more robust, so that it really does what it needs to. But maybe because these are public entities, there's the political element to it. There are always political principles.
Yes.
I know there will be a board,
of course,
but there will always be political principles, and I'm not sure to what extent that CEOs are even, as it were, allowed to do the job of a typical classical CEO in such a politically
fueled
space, you know. Which is why I was saying you might not end up not getting the best CEOs, because the best CEOs will probably have got options, which get them to say, I don't need the stress, I don't need to deal with this.
It's quite true, and it's quite problematic, because really I do like the sort of, as what Spokie is saying, that the environment or the creation of that sort of position was meant to really achieve the same level of output that is expected from a CEO in a corporate space. Maybe that was the expectation, but then the environment maybe is not allowing for that to ensue. But I mean, we've seen it also. I think we've had really some bad examples in the Transnets, in the sea, in the ESCOMs and all of that. You know, we've had some really, really bad examples. But I think, though, the point maybe you are putting across.
CEO who's in hot water now, the rough CEO.
The one that's been put on special leave.
I mean, when you hear some of the stories coming out of there, I mean, you really, you want to pull out your hair, if you like, even if you don't have.
And also, I think political influence has also tarnished, you know, the entities, you know, as well, because political influence goes a long way, and it can either make it or break it.
But isn't that also, I mean, what we were, you remember the other day, I made an example of, you know, someone was saying to me, part of the bigger problem with these spaces is actor, we can employ actor, or we can take actor in and he becomes the MEC for, you know, treasury and whatever, I mean, what have you. Yes. But if actor is the MEC, which is the highest political sort of position in that particular space and treasury, but in the ANC or in the government or political party that he comes from, he's a non-entity. So basically, it's just been pushed there. So you are a junior in the political
Yes.
party from which you come in. So then you are being put there as a token to actually push, the agenda of these people that put you there, and that also really can actually diminish your capacity and your strategies and all of those things that maybe actor is put there to because of his capabilities, but he's unable to do that because he's just become a puppet.
Political influence.
You might remember what I said. What I said just before we went on air. I remembered someone talking about power and saying the power does not really reside in the person in the position of power, but in the forces surrounding that person. That's where the power actually resides. So if you overly focus on the individual, you might actually be missing the point. Your analysis must be able to look at what is surrounding this particular person. That will better inform you as to the locus of power and its character.
Jeez,
on that person.
It's quite a
and it happens everywhere. Churches, government, everywhere.
No, it's true.
Sure.
Spokie, what you got there for us?
Wow.
Jeez, we
just went. Okay, so so these are the
time is 4:35 now, ladies.
Oh wow, we've gone
Spokie, Spokie is gonna give us some of the stuff that she would want for us to look into.
Okay, so this is some of the stories that made news during the course of the week. So the National Prosecuting Authority has welcomed the life sentences imposed on the 3 kidnappers and traffickers of Jocelyn Smith. The court has also ordered their names to be put on the National Child Protection Register. This is a groundbreaking case in South Africa, although unfortunately the girl has not been found. She went missing from her home in Middelbos in Saldanha Bay in February last year.
It's I think it's one of the not everyone is gonna praise the NPA about this, but
not at all.
They should actually be praised in terms of for me. I think I like the speed.
Yes.
Sometimes there are very few cases that go like this with so much speed. There's usually a lot of postponements. I don't know whether the postponements are mostly with the what we've seen with the politically sort of corruption and that's where we've seen a lot of postponements. But of course, I mean, the other one case that is really annoying and irritating is the Senzo Meyiwa.
Oh no, I can't. With that one, I can't. I don't even want to begin to imagine what the family is going through. I mean, it's been what, 15 years, 14 years now? Something ridiculous.
It's 15, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so the Reserve Bank Governor, Lesetja Kganyago, announced the second repo rate cut of the year on Thursday afternoon, which was cut by 25 basis points, bringing
He actually cut.
Yeah, cut to Sheila, yes. On Thursday, yeah.
Wow.
And so it has I just saw it in the news.
He's always doing minute
and shouting. So the repo rate has come down to 7.25%. So this decision comes as a welcomed relief for many households facing financial difficulties and aims to stimulate broader economic recovery.
With the mortgage bonds and that.
Yes, So the family of Olorato Mongale says they are pleased by the police's investigation in the case. On Friday, one of the main suspects in her case was shot dead by police. Police say he was found hiding at a residential complex in Amanzimdodi in KwaZulu-Natal. The police say the suspect opened fire when they announced their arrival, and he was killed in the subsequent shootout. One more suspect is still at large. Mongale's body was found on Monday, a day after she went on a date with one of her alleged killers.
What did you make, guys, of that
this case,
the KZN thing?
This case
Mkhwanazi, hero yetu. In fact,
so the incident started in Joburg, right?
Yes, in Joburg,
because she's a Rhodes graduate, was studying at Vets.
Yes, she was working for Times Live, apparently.
So these people quickly moved to KZN because the car was actually found in KZN. Body shop, top shop
yes, in KZN.
KZN.
Yes.
Yeah. It really upsets me.
No, it's very upsetting.
Look, the Mkwanazi thing, I did make a comment, and I think for me, he's probably, as far as I can remember, he's like the first police commissioner that is so clear. I mean, if you watched on Friday, it's very clear his articulation and his understanding of his work and what he needs to put out there. And also not being sort of intimidated by media and all of that. You know, I haven't seen a police commissioner like this in a very long time.
No,
in our country.
There's a couple of things there. This is a police commissioner who is a policeman.
Yeah.
True. Which is very, very important.
Yes.
I mean, you remember there was a time when Ria Piecha was.
Because
the idea is.
We don't want to even go there.
Okay, what it does is not what is ordinarily expected of police commissioners.
Sure.
It's a bit like in the army, that would be the equivalent of a general. Generals don't fight wars. They don't. They are supposed. They should not be
strategic.
They should not risk being killed. They should, you know. But he is both. I remember an interview where you were saying, my position is such that I'm supposed to spend time in the boardroom or something. But you know, he goes out there, which is probably a big motivation for
his people.
That he actually, you know, is actively involved. It's probably something out of necessity. You know? It might well be that in more stable circumstances, it would be a typical police commissioner. You wouldn't need a police commissioner like that. But where South Africa is now in the level of criminality, you probably need commissioners who are exactly built in that kind of kind of fashion, you know. Which is why I often say, when people say, this is the one who should become the police minister, and I'll say, no, but
we need him there.
You don't want him to become a politician.
No.
You want
you want him to
that's what you call
he's a police
hands-on
officer.
and he's hands-on.
You don't want to then make him a political head.
He'll be discussing these things.
You're not using it.
You just want.
But I know what they're trying. Their hearts are in the right place. They're thinking he should be the leader of the whole thing.
But I mean, the mistake they are making is to have a police minister that would be able to work with people like that. That would actually be know how to deploy people like
and support, give them the support.
Exactly.
And that's what they should be saying, really, because you want to be able to deploy a mind like that, and equip them in the best way you can, you know, even if it means taking them to international sort of conferences where they actually get more skills to be able to operate in that space, you know, get special training and all of that. That's what you want. And he's giving us, really, I mean, in KZN, we are yet to see the results in terms of the statistics. There's still there's a little change that's happened, but I'm sure more changes would happen from him continuing. And if even worse, if he were to move national, you know. But I think it's a baby step type of thing. I'm happy for me that KZN can be used as a catalyst for him being there to be able to show what a police commissioner who is effective in doing his work can do nationally, you know. So I think I was really kind of impressed. I mean, that thing was in the morning. I don't know. Did you watch that thing?
No,
the interview on Morning Live. It was in the morning, and he was really he continues to impress me in his articulation.
And you see, here's one of the things that I also like about him. What often happens with personalities like him, is that they can easily step outside the law. But he seems to be very, very clear. Even like the way they have worked with the Gauteng guys. Because really the locus of the crime was Gauteng. So I was saying no. So I was actually impressed when he says, no, they handed them to the guys from Gauteng. That the guys from Gauteng can do because this is actually Gauteng kids. It just so happened that quite often people like that,
they can actually chow
Can throw away the book.
Yes, exactly.
And say, hey, I'm doing the Lord's work.
Exactly. But I hope no one's going to go out of their way to tarnish his image, because when you have someone that is diligently working like that and combative like that, you will always find somewhere along the way, someone's going to come up with.
No, I did see an interview where he was being what? Questioned, charged? With something to do with the IPID and some.
There was. So that's since been squashed now.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah,
So it's possible. Oh, you will make enemies.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, it's expected.
So
yeah.
I think the key again, Hector, will go into who he surrounds himself with, and the type of people that are advising him in terms of, because remember in the position that he's in now, and in the position of the country, the criminality that is upon us. So you need him to concentrate on doing that work, but also having someone who's going to say, "Funding, be careful here. You may find yourself, on the other side of the law and all of that in these small things that people may want to utilize, against him." So he kind of needs a people who are strong around him. Who are
because there's always that danger of, if you're too immersed, you need somebody who's able to see, who's a bit detached, able to
big
see
time. Kuba spoke.
Yeah, so said
4:45, ladies.
Don't put that pressure. Don't put that pressure.
No.
So SADC says it will not meet their deadline to withdraw the SANDF peacekeepers from the DRC by the end of May. This is due to logistical delays withdrawing all heavy equipment from their base near Goma. The SANDF says just over 30 trucks have transported South African military equipment from Goma to Tanzania. Other heavy equipment will be transported through the Dar es Salaam port to South Africa.
The DRC's infrastructure is bad. Maybe because it's such a large country. There are many places where it's very hard to get there by road. Actually, it's preferable to fly. It's really, really hard. I can imagine that they probably even had to build roads as part of this process. That's how the DRC is.
And Lukabila is actually also back in the Congo.
Yeah, I saw that he's back in the country now.
Was there not a story about him being charged with something?
They kind of like squashing it. I don't know. There's something also that I read about that, but I'm not sure. But Ingati's got links to that rebel group.
Yes.
There's links to the rebel group. Yeah. So the presidency says the retired judge, CC Kampepe, will start her work at the Commission of Inquiry into the allegations of political interference in the NPA on July the 1st. President Cyril Ramaphosa last week announced Kampepe as a chairperson of the commission. It will probe allegations that politicians and senior government officials unlawfully prevented the NPA from prosecuting apartheid-era crimes.
One friend of mine's reaction was another one.
Yeah.
Another inquiry.
Taxpayers.
Yeah, but it's probably worthwhile doing it, I suppose.
Another redress.
To get close on some of these matters.
No, look, I think for me, that one is just a smoke screen that's meant to quiet the whole sort of people who are complaining around that particular thing. Some of these things don't really need a commission of inquiry, all of these things. I mean, the work is being done now. Let's deal with the work, and that's it. In my view, as president, I wouldn't have opened up that type of a discussion, because really, look, there are always lobbyists, and there are always people who are pressurizing the government to go a certain way. I mean, I listen. I listen to the likes of the Lucanio Calata and sort of them, their unhappiness and all of that. For me, it's to a certain extent, I feel like these families, they they went into the struggle, and their fathers, and I'm not even sure if their fathers would be, if they were alive, would approve some of the pressures like the Lucanio Galatas are actually doing. But if the government had then, I think Lucanio, I heard it at some stage to be saying something that the government had then agreed or signed something to say these people are not, if that was part of the agreement, that should have been shared with the families, to say, look, part of the negotiations process has led us to this particular agreement. If that was there, then the ANC owed it to their families to share that whole thing, and play open
and be
cards.
transparent.
If that was not done, then I would hear the resentment. But if the whole thing was supposed to go on and lead on to persecution, and it was not done, of course, I mean, also the element of who said that this must not be done. There are a lot of rumors that have been in the past shared around the fact that the whole, even the old TRC was quashed because it seemed to be looking now deeper into the ANC and its own sort of handling of its own people. As a result, of course, the pressure that happened at the time was that there were Askaris also infiltrating the movement. So the movement needed to protect itself against those Askaris. Now, the problem with Askaris is that by their very nature, they are black people. Because they were sent there to infiltrate. So so they get planted, and therefore they would have been dealt with by the government, I mean by the ANC, as it were. So when it looked like the TRC is going into that level, so the ANC then sought to quash the whole TRC. Hence the report was then closed. It was never pursued further and all of that. And of course, we know who better than to protect the ANC than Thabo Mbeki. Thabo Mbeki is like
one of the challenges with post-conflict societies is this balance, and Mbeki talks about it a lot. This balance between obtaining peace and justice, and which one, and sometimes you actually have to choose which one should take precedence. Should we forfeit peace in the pursuit of justice, or should we pursue peace and in the process compromise justice? So quite often that happens.
And who better, guys, to actually look at the fact that some of this, there was someone, there is a quote that I once read, where it really speaks to the people that seek to judge people of the past, when they are sitting in the context of the now. I forget how it goes, but that one, where most of the people, even the young people and them, even the Malemas and everyone who reflect on those decisions that were made during those discussions, they reflect on those discussions and all of that in the context of the now, in the comfortability of the now, but not in the pressure and the pressurized moment of those times where those decisions had to be made. Therefore, they are not qualified, in my view, on any given stage to actually pass judgment on those things, because the circumstances and everything that was done under different sort of circumstances that made people to make those decisions.
If you're not in the arena,
actually,
there's a whole poem, I think it was by Kipling, called "The Man in the Arena."
That one is it not Roosevelt? Man in the Arena, Roosevelt.
And that really captures the whole thing. A lot of us, without even knowing it, are actually armchair critics. We've got at best the foggiest idea of the circumstances that we're obtaining, which led to the decisions or the choices that were made at the time that they were made. Besides that, you also have got the benefit of hindsight, which those ones who were in the moment did not have. And so sometimes, some level of moderation and humility is required in looking at things that are out of your context, as it were. So I hear you. I think absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so the Gauteng Department of Education says parents can apply to have their children placed in schools from the day the system opens until the closing date. Online admissions for grade 1s to grade 8 pupils opened on the 24th or will open on the 24th of July and close on the 29th of August. The department is confident the system has improved and will be much smoother for pupils who need space in 2026.
This thing, why is this a Gauteng thing? Why
I don't know,
provinces are not
because I was
following up
actually
on this
thinking
thing?
about that.
I mean,
Because I thought in the beginning it was a pilot project.
Yeah, I thought it was a
and
pilot
it's
project
been like what,
too.
the 5th year now?
Yeah, they've
So
been going
it
on for quite some
can't be.
time. I
It
mean,
can't
it's
be
why
that one
is it
province
not moving into
isn't
other
Western
provinces?
Cape doing it, or
I don't think
I was
Western
about
Cape.
to say, in many areas, Gauteng and the Western Cape are in a different league.
Tingent,
to
yeah.
the other, in terms of the regulations they have, in terms of
Yes,
the laws they have, in
yes.
terms of
Mm.
yeah, even just in terms of, let's say, the body of provincial
Yeah,
legislation
yeah,
that is
yeah.
there. It's part of the inequality.
No,
No,
because
it
they went
is.
aggressive also on iPads.
On
you
iPad,
remember,
yeah.
the other sort of years. But this one, I mean, this should have filtrated throughout the
Throughout the
whole country
provinces,
at the
yeah.
moment.
It should have.
That
In
way,
Dawes School, a big problem, guys. Especially when we want to get them into high schools.
yeah.
It's a
Even
problem.
Nalapa Imont,
Yeah, no. It's a big problem. So Apemonte, I mean, you kind of now, if you are going to apply for Umdana next year, when I go when's the applications are say early for grade R?
No, I've already done. The one school said not for next year, but for 2020, but in the end I submit for 2027 already. So
that's how bad it is. That's how bad
And
it
then
is.
and you're still talking about pre-primary.
Yeah. And
High
remember,
school,
most
but there are
started
even fewer high schools.
because now it's just started to crash this year.
Yeah.
So now at least next year I'm gonna like continue applying because at least she has gotten the gist of being at school
and so the crash, is it linked to what? Do they
the
have links
feeder
to-
schools,
yeah.
yes, they do. But I don't believe in just focusing on one school. So yeah. But now as the new school, they want your municipal and I'm like, and then I like big, but okay,
But you know what? I can say this confidently. The politics in the schools is quite it's quite vivid, guys.
No, it is. It is.
I am sure that in our schools, white people are the most behind in fees than black people.
No, they are, because talking about that, a friend of mine last year, he went to collect e-report and he found out that he had a month outstanding that he wasn't aware of, because he normally pays like two months in advance. So if it's January, then also January, February, March, and then go March at April, May type of thing. So Uti, in one of the months, he forgot that he skipped a month. But he only realized that when he went to get, so he paid. And then while he was on the queue, he was chatting to like the white parents. I haven't had, Tony, I've had a very bad year financially. I'm behind with like 6 months, 8 months. Like, okay, now I am panicking for 1 month. You know,
months.
so I was so shocked that
I know they do let them. They do let those white parents.
No, it's
be
politics.
behind.
It's politics. It's politics.
But if you are a black parent, they would probably chase your child out of school.
That is the thing, and it's unfortunate, Yani Injalo, and this guy, you've got someone that's in the board or whatever in that PTA and all those things, SGPs, whatever. Okay, so the battle for the AmaZulu throne wrapped up at the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. The president is challenging a high court ruling setting aside his recognition of King Misuzulu Kazwelithini. A faction of the royal family argues that the president did not follow due process.
Was there not a ruling of the SCA already?
I think it was appealed.
Appealed, yeah.
To where? To Constitutional Court?
When was this?
No, this one is the High Court, not the Constitutional Court.
No,
Because
then it
because
hasn't.
the SCA
No.
is usually the
Yeah,
apex
no.
court unless there's a constitutional matter.
No, it wasn't. It hasn't gone.
Yes,
national.
yeah.
So you're saying the SCA is not ruled yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Akunzima. It's a Supreme Court of
Appeals.
Appeals.
Yeah. Court of Appeals,
So
so,
it was a challenge of a High Court ruling,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was being appealed. Yeah.
Yeah, but is the Supreme Court of Appeal ruled?
No, not
no,
yet.
it hasn't,
So that's where
no.
the president went in to defend the decision.
Yes. So the awarding of the National Lottery and Sports pools license.
That's another thing that was like, yeah.
As
So
is a
Zungu is there now.
So, which Zungu?
Zungu. Yeah, isn't Zungu the guy who's the owner of Amazulu?
Oh,
And
but I was trying to place Los Zungu, but
Yeah, it's two guys. Yeah,
yes,
it's the owner of
yes,
Amazulu,
yes.
yeah.
Hence, look
So
at they're saying
Zungu would
it is not transparent and there's
Yeah.
conflict
lot
of
of,
interest.
yeah.
Ish.
Because that guy, that's the
Ooh.
father of the girl that was
That
killed,
died, yes, Utembe.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's
Yeah, no, say
So
yeah,
there is a
no.
possibility, according to latest news, that lottery will not be going through for quite some time.
Why
if-
don't they extend? Oh, okay.
But
If
look,
this goes to
those
court,
guys, if they extended, they don't have enough money to actually run. That's also been something that's been said. They don't even have enough money to run that.
to run that thing.
Yeah.
Ish, yeah.
Kunzima.
Abantu, are they not gambling anymore?
Ilotho bayaqhuba abantu kaloku,
Makuba
but
Band
kaloku,
is just that. Kaloku as a company.
Where's the money?
those guys that were running, so the guys who were running they could say kaloku afandini, the operation was budgeted to run up
For
until
that
a certain
15 years,
period,
yeah.
So for them to extend then for the next 6 months, I
6
think
months, yeah, you need X
they
amount.
need, so it's like, I mean, what they would do with construction. If you want me, this is what you planned. If on the Nimali construction, my budget was from the next 3 months. By into yakho ngizabe sendiyichomile ndiyiqibile ndayishiya kuwe, but ngokwanetha yabo. So ngoku imali ke ngoku iyalanduka andikwazi ukugqiba, khona ezinye izinto ezifunekayo, things got damaged and so forth.
Yeah.
So I think that's what
I think it's similar to that, yeah.
Let's see.
And the expiration at the end of May, license in October. So
Yesterday, you mean?
Yesterday, just yesterday.
Just to be clear.
Yesterday, yes, yesterday.
It's in Spokie and 501.
So the family of the late actor Presley Chweneyachai says his passing was due to natural causes after having sudden respiratory challenges. Best known for his breakout role in the Oscar-winning film Tsotsi, the actor captured hearts with his powerful performances. Chweneyachai will be laid to rest next Saturday in Pretoria.
Cobrizi.
I'm not, to be honest, this Cobrizi thing, I think it was not like etched in my mind that it's him. Because it was like, no, it can't be Cobrizi. And I'm like, and then I was like, I need to look at the picture. I was like, man, this guy was young.
Yeah, this boy is young. I mean, he's 40 years old.
Imagine.
I mean,
no, man.
So he was going to turn 41 this year, isn't
Yeah, 41 this year. And then we're still gonna, okay. Anyway, so Communications Minister Solima Latsi is defending his recently gazetted policy directive. It seeks to formally recognize equity equivalent investment programs in the ICT sector. The Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies says the minister has no powers to effect such a change, which has been criticized as opening a backdoor for Elon Musk's Starlink. The policy change could allow companies in the information and communication sector to operate without the 30% black ownership. The department, however, says the move has nothing to do with Elon Musk's Starlink.
Yeah, so that part we've established. That's I think during the week, I mean, that's what he's been trying to say. But he's not advancing, in my view, who is he trying or why that is becoming so coincidental in a way.
The timing is
yeah,
just too
but he says he's been doing it since last year.
Mm.
They've been trying to sort of find some changes in there, but those changes for who and for why, you know, that those things have become so now priority, if you
All of a
like.
sudden,
Yeah. So I think the debate, I mean, will probably, as I said to Mr. Klele, we will engage with this next week as we speak to Luvo Gray,
Yes.
who has there's an article that he wrote.
Opinion piece.
Yeah, this week on that particular matter. So we will be engaging him and sort of go deep into the whole thing around the redress laws as well, even as we look at that particular aspect of the ICT sort of you know, sector, as it were. So very important. Anyone spoke?
It brings very interesting dynamics. Starlink got into Zimbabwe, and some of these dynamics played out there as well.
But it was quiet, though. Was it quiet? Because I'd never read.
It wasn't. Yeah. Yeah.
There was also, I think, you must just look up. I saw something that Nechitenze had written around the whole thing with Starlink and and also the whole idea around sovereignty
and implications.
Of Starlink and all
Beyond
of that.
what does it mean?
And things.
Yes. Yeah.
It was quite eye opening what he wrote and what it could mean for you know, information being disseminated via the Starlink, where government now cannot have any control on what information is being moved there.
It's quite good for thought.
Yeah, it is. It is, and also it's just a reflection, guys, of the age in which we live in, where governments and are all looking for information and control, if you like, because ultimately that's what information is.
It's about control.
It's about control, because once we find levers that act as an control ngazo, it becomes and we say for this is what we got to team, and that's how then they can and this is not just at a level of individuals, it's a level of governments.
In fact, we're in the age of big data, so this is really what it's about. But some people go so far as to say even Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter was already the beginnings of a move in that direction. Having a big enough platform to be able to gather,
infiltrate, information,
gather, you know, big data or trends and behaviors and all this and all of that.
Wow. Is out there. Okay, before Ubert Lester chucks me out, moving further afield, our friend or nemesis, billionaire Elon Musk bade farewell to Donald Trump in an extraordinary Oval appearance on Friday, brushing aside drug abuse claims and vowing to stay a friend and advisor to the U.S. president as the world's richest man bowed out of his role as Trump's cost cutter in chief in the Republican hailed Musk's incredible service and handed him a golden key to the White House. But Trump insisted that Musk was really not leaving after a turbulent 4 months in which his department, which is Doge, is it Dodge or Doge? Doge. Oh, okay. Cut tens of thousands of jobs, shuttered the whole agencies and slashed foreign aid. And lastly, the UN warned Friday that the entire population of Gaza was at risk of famine as an Israeli far-right minister urged the use of full force against Hamas. Negotiations to end nearly 20 months of war have so far failed to achieve a breakthrough, with Israel resuming operations in Gaza in March following a short-lived truce. Israel recently intensified its offensive in what it says is a renewed push to destroy Hamas, drawing global condemnation over the dire humanitarian conditions in Gaza.
Wow. The Gaza issue is quite a big issue that's not going away. It's gonna be with us for the rest of this year. I'm not seeing, I don't know from your side, Hector, but I'm not seeing any sort of end coming soon there in that particular, because Netanyahu, with his drive to stay in power as well, that's one of the bigger problems there, is that if he comes out of power, what's going to happen to him? Because there's quite a lot of people who feel like he should be arrested for a number of things in Israel. And so that alone, so that alone is he's using the agenda of war as a way of staying outside of that particular space. So it's quite a dicey one.
It is, No, maybe we might need a session on Israel and Gaza and how Israel is carrying on now. But the humanitarian crisis is really quite heartrending. And in some ways, I blame both sides, actually, both Hamas and Israel.
Okay. I think then, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break. We'll do some good music. The time now is 5:09, which we've had a lot of talking to do here, diving into a various number of sort of situations that we're talking to. And I do want to say to you, stay tuned next week, because we're going to go further into Luvo Gray will be here. Hopefully Hector will be here as well for us to actually delve into that particular subject, which is quite a very deep subject in the country, as it were. So now let me just look at what music we're going to give you, so that we, get ourselves re-energized as we listen to, I think I like that one. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, ladies and gentlemen. Don't leave me this way. That's what we're going to be doing. Don't leave me this way. I can't survive. Yes. So that's what we're going to do. That will definitely be followed by I'm Still in Love with You, New Edition, and Janet Jackson, Anytime, Any Place. Don't leave me this way. Eish, 14. Hamba but suhamba lewe man, suba lewe.
Hey.
Zong.